lot of people are wondering, why am I focusing so much of my review time for This Is Halloween reviews on camp movies? Why camp movies? Well, it's because I think that there is a lack of appreciation for these films. And in fact, these films are often used as punching bags by highbrow theatrical and film critics, complaining that, the story is bad, or the acting is terrible, or that it's just mindless fluff. You're holding these things up to a standard they were never meant to achieve. These were just little nonsense films. Some of them shot in a week or less sometimes, with actors who are so no-name, their IMDb page doesn't even have a picture on it. All right, these were not meant to be great think pieces. They were there to fill out the marquee. They were something you went to the drive-in to watch. Nobody was caring about the story or the plot. They were expecting half the teenagers to be making out by the time the film got 30 minutes in. So, holding these films up to all of this bile and hatred is really counterproductive and an unfair assessment of their actual worth. Some of these things are actually fairly charming and feature fun little performances and unique little moments that are just something you don't find anywhere else. You find literal diamonds in the rough with these movies. But not with this one. The best way I can describe this movie is, that scene in Wayne's World 2 when Wayne is driving to go stop Cassandra's wedding, and he stops at the gas station and he asks the gas station attendant, "Where is Gordon Street?" And the gas station attendant is this actor, and he's just like, I once knew a girl who lived on Gordon Street. And Wayne just stops the movie dead and says, do we have to put up with this? I know it's a small part, but I think we can do better than this. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. I understand what this movie is. I understand what its purpose for existing was. But honestly, I really think we can do better than this, folks. You can see films that miss the mark, but the people are trying really, really hard. But it just doesn't stick the landing. It just doesn't come together. I think that's kind of why Ed Wood films are so beloved, is that even though they're incompetent, you can tell there is effort. He's trying to make a movie. This film, it just seems like people are wandering around, and that nobody really knows what is the story, what they're supposed to be doing, what is happening. I have no proof of this, but I would almost guarantee that the director screamed the line, "Holy shit, this movie opens tomorrow and we still have 40% of it to film," at some point during the making of this movie. And here's the funny part. With all that being true, at a 63-minute runtime, this film still feels like it is stretching to make those 63 minutes. It is just... Maron. I love campy films. I love crappy movies like this. But sometimes they make it so hard. They make it so hard to love them. I'm trying to meet you halfway here, Ghost of Dragstrip Hill, but you're just not making it easy for me. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's be generous and call it a movie. It's going to be very difficult to explain the plot to this film because there seems to be several at any given time that the writers or actors or directors or all of the above just suddenly get bored of one and just switch to the next thing because, they just don't know how to do a movie. But we're going to do our best here. First thing I think it is important to note is that this film is actually a sequel. Believe it or not, this is a sequel to the 1958 film The Hot Rod Gang. Yes, apparently, The Hot Rod Gang was so popular that audiences demanded a follow-up so that they could see what became of their favorite characters. And who can blame them? With the rich tapestry of characters that are woven throughout this masterpiece. Unforgettable characters like the bland white guy, the short, geeky nerd with the disproportionately hot girlfriend who is also at least a foot taller than him to emphasize the fact he is a nerd. Don't forget the Averman comic relief, whom I'm sure the director's girlfriend thought was really funny, and the rest of the world finds unbearably annoying. This guy makes Stanley from Tickle Me look like Lou Costello. Oh, the lights fell down. Look at that. Spooky. Anyway, what about the other brilliant characters? Well, let's not forget the female gearhead Lois, who doesn't want anything to do with no boys, but is just happy to work on her car. I only bring up Lois by name because she is the closest thing this film has to a protagonist or a character whom we follow throughout the film. She's the closest thing we have to anybody who has any kind of story. Anyway, however, I digress. Let's get back to the plot. So what is the story here? Well, the Hot Rod Gang is a gang of clean-cut, wonderful kids dispelling the true reputation of hot rodders and dragstrip racers, not as irresponsible assholes who endanger the lives of themselves and others in foolish displays of macho-ness, but rather as clean-cut, all-American kids who just like working on their cars. That's why they've established the Hot Rod Gang. And that's why they have very extensive bylaws against illegal drag racing. Yes, this club has bylaws. Someone wrote this down. They have dues and whatnot, apparently. That's a plot point in this, is that people haven't paid their dues to belong to the Hot Rod Gang, or when they have kicked someone out of the Hot Rod Gang for breaking those bylaws about evil drag racing, their dues are returned to them. You know, I will admit, I have never actually sat through an entire proper Fast and the Furious movie. However, I seriously doubt there is a scene in any of those films where, in between grunting the word family like he's Pavlov's dog and he gets a treat every time he says it, does Vin Diesel ever sit down to discuss the deep and binding laws that govern his little family of drag racers. Well, but these kids are having a real problem, you see, because despite the fact that they are good, upstanding citizens, they're losing the right to their clubhouse. They're being kicked out because they're not paying the rent. I don't understand how that can be true when there looks like there is an actual business going on inside this clubhouse. Some French guy, or guy doing a very bad French accent, actually has a bar and a restaurant inside the clubhouse, but because these kids weren't paying their dues, they're shutting the whole place down. I mean, was he working for them? Just how much money and business acumen did these hot rod kids have? So they have to find a new place to groove. Now, you would think that that would lead us to the titular haunted house. However, that is not what happens next. What happens next is Lois, again, the closest thing to a main character that we have, Lois hosts a slumber party. And a good chunk of the middle of this film is taken up at her slumber party, where the teens get together and dance. There's a lot of dancing in these films, in case you haven't noticed. At this party, we also meet Lois's annoying-ass aunt, who I'm not sure why she's there, and she also brings with her a talking parakeet who can make a sound like a police siren, because that's foreshadowing, and also actually talks back to the old woman. Once again, I get the feeling that this is a woman who is somehow related to one of the producers or the director, and they think she's incredibly hysterical, but nobody else in the world does. But she's in this movie a lot. So you'd think the story about the Hot Rod Club losing their hideout and needing to find a new place to groove would be the main story, but it's actually not. It's barely a side story. The actual story, or as much as there is about Lois, the gearhead of the group, whom, as I've mentioned, is more interested in working on her engine than she is with going out with boys, even though she is clearly dating the incredibly white leader of the Hot Rod gang. But she's getting in too much trouble drag racing because she's constantly being challenged by the blonde girl from the evil Dragstrip Club. Yes, there's an evil Dragstrip Club. Apparently, they were part of the Hot Rod Club, but were kicked out for doing evil dragstrip things. I can only assume that this must have been things that were covered in the original. This is why it's very dangerous to watch a sequel without having watched the original. You miss all these little connecting threads that give the film much more depth and allow you to appreciate it on a much higher level. At one point, the evil Dragstrip Club actually invades the slumber party. It goes nowhere. I can't even get into it, and then something happens. Like, no, they're there, and then they leave. That's kind of what keeps happening with these evil Dragstrip kids, who you assume, okay, at some point, when they get to the haunted house, these evil Dragstrip kids are going to be the ones doing all the mischief to make them think it's haunted, right? Okay, that's where this film is going. It doesn't go there. They show up, they throw slang at one another, and then they leave. They do this like 3 times at 3 different locations. That's another thing. If for some reason you do feel the desire to watch this movie, make sure you have your 1950s slang to English dictionary handy. Because boy, howdy, are they whipping it around. I have to know. I really want to know. Is this really how kids in the 50s spoke? Is this really the dialogue that they used? I understand that, most of these films are, in any generation, are written by 40-year-olds who are writing the way they think kids these days talk. But, I've seen a lot of movies from this era, and they all do. Is this really how they spoke? Because if so, you have to give the 50s teenagers credit for being so eloquent with their slang. I think about the slang I used as a kid. I think about the slang the kids use now. They're constantly shortening words. Whereas these people give an entire sonnet to basically say, I'm thirsty and I want a drink of water. So if that is how they talked, kudos to them for elevating the language, I suppose. Sorry we didn't uphold the tradition. So at this point in time, much like the previous film, you're probably wondering, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory, for God's sakes? The film is called The Ghost of Dragstrip Hill. And yet the idea to go to a haunted house doesn't even occur to these people till almost 45 minutes into a 63-minute film. Now, yes, Tickle Me turned into a haunted house movie there at the end, but it never advertised itself as such. It never said, come see Elvis in a haunted house movie, and you're suddenly treated to over an hour of him hanging out at a dude ranch. This one goes the opposite way and says, come see this movie about hot rod kids in a haunted house, but you're treated instead to some bullshit about Hot Rod Club bylaws, Lois not being allowed to hang out with the club because she's grounded, and slumber party shenanigans. And then, oh yeah, we forgot, we got to go to the haunted house. And the way it's even brought to their attention is one of the biggest non sequiturs I've ever seen in my life. So Granny, crazy grandma, or aunt, or whatever the hell she is, drives Lois to the former clubhouse of the Hot Rod Gang to meet up with the kids. They have a crazy driving sequence. They get out of the car, and Granny says something to the effect of, "Ooh, I'm scared of the ghost of whoever who lives in the haunted house I just happened to have." Nobody asked her. Nobody said, "Hey, what's wrong? Why are you afraid? Why won't you go home?" She just gets out of the car and says it. It's just there. Again, going back to the very first film I reviewed for this, in Tickle Me, yes, the becoming a haunted house movie at the end of the film is jarring, but it is not completely out of nowhere. They do set it up. One, they have a reason why they are going to the abandoned ghost town, because Pam's grandfather left her the note saying he hid the treasure there. Okay, this is established early in the film. They go to the ghost town to have their weird cowboy fantasy musical number, but in that moment, Pam drops the line that the people say you can still hear the ghosts of whoever and whoever haunting the place. Okay, we have established, we have set up, and when Elvis chases Pam to the Dude Ranch, we see that he knows why she's going there. She's going to look for the treasure. You see how all these things connect? Look, Ghost of Dragstrip Hill. I know that this is a hard lesson, and it was virtually impossible for you to know at the time, because Elvis movies would not be invented for another 5-6 years, maybe. But if an Elvis movie, if the plot of an Elvis movie is more carefully constructed and has a more logical flow of cause to effect than you do, baby, you done fucked up someplace along the line. So, anyway, Granny drops this bomb, and the kids decide, oh great, we'll use the haunted house as our new clubhouse. All right, the thing that should have been the plot the entire time becomes the plot in the last 20 minutes of the film. Now, you would think, once again, comparing it to Tickle Me became a haunted house movie in the last 20 minutes, but they made the most of those last 20 minutes. In this instance, the kids go to the haunted house. They're mildly terrified. We see that there is, in fact, someone living there and secret panels. But the next thing you know, it's morning. It's morning, and they've decided they're going to throw a hootenanny there. They're going to have a dance that night because things. The creature roaming around doesn't really do much to frighten them. I don't think they even ever notice he's there. It's blah. And everything is just wrapped up suddenly, very quickly towards the end of the film. I really do get the feeling that towards the end of this film, they were just running out of time and they were wrapping shit up. I should have mentioned the Hot Rod Gang has an adult friend, some reporter who's doing a story on them because apparently there is absolutely no other news happening anywhere in this town other than what the Hot Rod Gang is up to, because these kids are about as interesting as burnt toast. But he's doing a pretty hefty story on them for how much he's hanging out with them. He's hanging out at this party on, I bet the ghost is going to show up soon, and then we'll catch him. With all of the excitement and enthusiasm that I get whenever I read the latest email from the school district. And when they finally do catch the guy in the monster suit, it is, I don't even know what he's doing there. The best I can figure out is that he's some kind of movie actor who played monsters in monster movies, who for some reason has taken up living at this house. And they catch him, he says some weird non-cohesive lines and then wanders off, and they just kind of go, well, okay, that's done now. All right, let's wrap up the plot here. And they do this for everything. Remember how I mentioned that Lois is the closest thing to a protagonist that this film has, because she actually has like a conflict of sorts with the blonde girl from the evil Dragstrip gang. Well, they settle that off screen. She's challenged to a drag race. She says, okay, we're going to do it. Now, in a sequel to a film called The Hot Rod Gang, which stars the Hot Rod Gang. That is their thing. So one would assume hot rods and drag racing in a movie called The Ghost of Dragstrip Hill, that the ghost aspect would become a priority, or the drag strip would become a priority. No, she's challenged to the drag race. She leaves. She comes back and says, oh, we don't have to worry about them anymore. I took care of it. What the fuck does that mean? I think she murdered them. I really do. I really think she murdered them. Because we never see them again. Granted, the film has like 3 minutes left, but yeah. The best character of this movie, the absolute best part of this movie, is the actor playing Lois's dad, who again is, again, I have great respect for no-name actors, but again, so no-name, he doesn't even have a picture on his IMDb page. I love this character mainly because it's the exact kind of dad I hope I'm going to be someday. Exactly. Because all he does is wander around gawking incoherently at the children doing their boogie-woogie dancing in his living room and complaining about the kids these days. That is exactly the type of dad I hope I'm going to be. It's pretty much the type of dad I am now, but, you know, I want to make it official. You know, he's the most enjoyable part of the movie because it's just funny to watch. Oh, they're dancing. We didn't dance like that. He's a less charismatic version of Mr. McAfee from Bye Bye Birdie. That, you know, kids these days, just kids is all with their boogie woogie dancing and their hula hoops and their roller skates and their Halloween parties and haunted houses for no discernible reason. Yeah, I love this character. Love it. But even then, there is some weird shit going on in this movie. Weird shit. So the first time we're introduced to Lois's dad, she comes home after getting caught by the police for drag racing. And he's having this conversation with her. He's upset, she's talking slang, and the camera keeps cutting back and forth between the two of them while they're sitting on the couch. Lois is talking the whole time in this very breathy voice. And, you know, well, gosh, Daddy, I can't believe you're gonna suspend me, talking in jive, but it's this very breathy voice, and she's very kind of looking down at him like over the eyelids kind of thing, and it's this very kind of blah, blah, blah. The camera pulls back, and somehow she has moved so that she is sitting with her legs draped over his and her arms around his neck, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening here? And he looks just as confused as we do. It's like, I don't think he knew this was the blocking. I really don't think he knew this was the blocking. So yes, okay. Just, wow. I accuse the Elvis movies of being slapdash and just had shit thrown together. But it was nothing compared to this. Compared to this, an Elvis movie looks like it has the carefully tuned plot of Lord of the Rings. I mean, it is just the Elvis movies look like Citizen Kane compared to these. Okay, but we got to wrap this up. So let's go through our categories. So the best song of the film. Well, that's an easy one here. And it is actually one of the genuinely enjoyable moments of this movie. It's one of the early songs, and it's called He's My Guy, when three girls in the Dragstrip Club get up and they do a trios number, a 50s doo-wop number. You know, ba-da-da-da, because he's my guy, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da. And it's actually quite good. The girls' voices all sound good together. They harmonize. It's a simple little song, but it's very much of the time. You know, very catchy, just kind of bobbing along. Yeah, I will say I actually really do enjoy the song. It's one of the only things about this movie that I can say they did really well. Now, keep in mind, it's not like it had a lot of competition. There's a lot of music in this film, but it is all it's bizarre. For instance, one of the other musical numbers is a number called Geronimo, with this band who are just playing some generic, repetitive beat, da-da-da-da, 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 and every so often they stop and go, Geronimo, and fire guns into the air. That's the song. What's even funnier is that at the slumber party, they start out by playing Geronimo, going, oh God, it's Geronimo, released on whatever record. And then they play another song, something about the cavalry, which is basically the same thing. It's a repetitive beat, but it has sound effects of hoof beats and bugle calls mixed into it. It is so fucking bizarre. Was this like a trend? Like the cavalry trend? The Western rock song? Why are these two songs in this movie? What do they have to do with anything? Even more out of nowhere is they have an actual singer, a young man at the time by the name of Jimmy Madden, who I guess was a singer, but again, very bottom of the barrel. Clearly, if he's in this picture, you're not getting Frank Sinatra to appear in The Ghost of Dragstrip Hill, who just is suddenly at the party. They're dancing to their generic music, Geronimo, for the 30th time. Figured we paid for the damn song, we're going to use it. And one of the characters goes, hey, wait a minute, everybody. Here's Jimmy Madden to sing us his new song, Tongue-Tied. And Jimmy Madden comes up and sings. Jimmy Madden having a look on his face the entire time of a man who had no idea that this was going to happen. You know that classic Simpsons episode where Krusty fakes his own death and they're at the funeral and Troy McClure calls Bob Newhart over to give a eulogy, and Bob Newhart tells him that he wasn't there for that funeral, he was just killing time before another funeral, and he has nothing to say, but Troy McClure makes him get up and give the eulogy anyway? That is exactly the look on Jimmy Madden's face here. The look of, I was here waiting for something else to happen, and the director grabbed me and pulled me onto the screen and said, sing a song. Again, there's a lot of that look going around, especially from the adults in the film. Like I say, the reporter has that look on his face a lot. The scenery captures the bad guy, or I don't even know, he's a bad guy, the guy in the monster suit. And the monster suit guy just gives some unintelligible lines and wanders away, and the reporter guy looks around, seriously, like he's looking like he's going to say, is that a cut? Or is that it? Is that what's supposed to happen? What's going on? But luckily they cut before he says anything. So He's My Guy is an actually genuinely entertaining musical number. I actually like it. I want to find it and put it on my iPod. I think it's catchy. So that's a good part of the movie. Okay. The reused costume of the night. In this one, the suit that the guy in the monster suit, and that's how he's listed in the credits, guy in a monster suit, he doesn't even have a name. The suit that he is wearing to attempt to scare the children away is the outfit for the she-creature from the movie The She-Creature. So yeah. I don't know how Mystery Science Theater missed out on this film. The only thing I can think is that at 63 minutes, they would had to have kept almost the entire film, done 2 shorts, and had all of the host segments go about 5 to 10 minutes in order to have the film reach the hour and 30-minute runtime of the show. So that's the only thing I can think of. But man, this thing is a mess. But if nothing else, we can all agree that it's wonderful when a film has a message. And I'm glad that this movie finally tells us the message that drag strip racing kids are not the criminals they have rightly been depicted as. They're good, all-American white kids, and we should just let them go. Thank you, movie, for teaching us the way. So thank you all for joining me for the Ghost of Dragstrip Hill. And as always, we'll be back next time with more Halloween camp. So, as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.